All right, this video is going to demonstrate setting up an assignment in GitHub and connected to an Eclipse project. So we're going to start from the start. Here we are on the assignment schedule page, and here's an assignment invitation link. When you click on it, it will create the repository. So see how it's creating the repository. If you weren't already logged into GitHub, it would ask you to log into GitHub first. This might take some time. I know that there were some earlier problems with some of this creating repositories getting stuck, but I think GitHub has fixed that. So I'm going to wait for a little bit. And it says we're ready to go. And so there is a link here, which is a link to the new repository for the assignment on GitHub. And so that is always accessible to you through going through the web, right? Just go into a browser. So once you have the assignment repository on GitHub, you need to clone it in order to get it into Eclipse on your local computer. So here we have this clone or download button, and it'll give us a URL with a little handy button to copy it into the clipboard. And then we can go to Eclipse. So I'm going to start up Eclipse now. Okay, and here we are in Eclipse, having started. So the first thing we need to do is to make Eclipse know about the repository. So we want to do that through the Git repositories panel. So that when you first start Eclipse, you might not see that panel. So it's not one of the default panels that comes up. So in order to get to the Git repositories panel, you have to go to Window, and then Show View, and then Other. It's a little bit buried. And then it'll come up with a list of categories. One of them is Git, and then we see Git repositories. So we can say Open, and then it shows up. And you can put it wherever you want, or manage that window however you want. But one of the options here is to clone a Git repository. That's this button here. Looks like there's also a link there. So we say Clone. And because we already copied the URL from GitHub to our clipboard, it comes up here automatically. But if it doesn't, then just copy that here. And so it'll fill in some default values. One of which is your username and password, which you can store. This is your GitHub username and password. You say next. It might ask you for which branches you want to clone, and you just select all of them. Usually there'll only be one, but this time there happen to be two. And so we say next. And then it's going to ask for where you want to store the repository on your local machine, and usually has a default value, which I'm just going to accept, but you can of course put it anywhere you want. And then I'm going to say finish, and then you'll see it show up here. And then in this Git repositories panel, for every repository you add, you'll have options for managing this repository. So you can see there's the branches and other things. We're going to use branches for the most part. So one last step is now making a project, an Eclipse project based on this repository. Nikhil showed one way in his video. A student showed another way for me that I think is actually a little bit easier. So the way to do that is to select a repository and then right-click on that repository, and then you'll see Import Projects. And you say Import Projects. It'll ask what the import source is, basically pre-filling in this repository, and you just say finish, and then you'll get a project in your package explorer that is now linked to your repository. You can see that it has created the correct project. Now this should be a Java project. It works for me just automatically. If for some reason it creates some other kind of project, then use Nikhil's method instead, because you really need this to be a Java project. But then you can see all the source code and everything in it. All right, and that is how you set up an assignment through a repository on Eclipse.